I guess that process of doing scratch sketches is similar when you're a musician, because if it doesn't hold up on paper and pencil and sitting in your kitchen just strumming it and singing it, it's not going to sound any better once you start to polish it.
You are listening to the Artist King Podcast. I am your host, DTM of DeltaTangoMike.com. The Artist King Podcast features artists, entrepreneurs, and business coaches who share their knowledge, expertise, and resources to provide insight into the ways we can find our own personal success with our creative talents. Allan Ploth is a musician, songwriter, and a creative celebrity with many interests in art, education, and music. I had a chance to meet Allan in person and see some of his amazing classic music tech gear that sparked a cool conversation that is now today's podcast. Hello, Allan. How are you doing today?
Sir, how are you? I'm very well, thanks. Good to see you again.
Oh, yes. And we just met like recently.
Yep.
So,
just once, but it was fun. You know, your beard looks bigger on screen than it does in real life. I could swear it grew out, but it hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't been that long, but it was was it already this year? It was this year.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was like a month ago.
Right.
We met up a month, it's maybe 6 weeks ago.
Okay. Yes.
You know what else? Just speaking of beards, also your beard just goes great with your background. You're so nicely coordinated. You got these muted and I'm not an art visual artist. I got nothing, but you got these beautiful muted hues and like just everything is just nice and cohesive.
I appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much. I work on it. I actually work on it. You know, don't spend a whole lot of time on it. I have a personal look. But yeah, it's good to know that it is noticed. You know,
I appreciate that kind of stuff. Like I'm like an infant when I go into an art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
I love visual art and I love performing arts, visual arts in general, because I have no skill whatsoever. I have very little hand-to-hand coordination, and the idea of drawing with perspective is just terrifying to me. So when I see, by the way, big promotion here, plug. I love your artwork. It's very vibrant, full of life, and it's got so much joy in it. So I'm like a little kid when I see visual art.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I guess because of those things that you just mentioned, that's why when I asked you to be a part of the podcast, you're like, sure, let's go. Because like I said, we just met not very recently, and the reason why my beard looks different is because it grows. It just grows. I just let it grow. You know, I don't trim it. I don't do anything. Every 6 months, maybe I'll trim it down. But I've seen videos of myself from a couple years ago, and it gets on my chest. Like it can get big.
Oh man!
And I don't think about it at that time. Like I'm just like,
I can never get that far. This is just neglect, right? and I go until it itches.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I just gotta get. I can't get past the itchy stage.
Right. Yeah. You have to ignore it for a while.
Yeah. Drink heavily or take some sort of narcotic until it grows out past the itchy stage.
Sure, why not? Just pick up a
just not
couple
my
bad
thing.
habits.
Exactly. Not worth it.
Well, so just to give a background to those of you out here listening, Allan and I, we met through Facebook Marketplace, and Allan was selling a couple of tables, art tables, drafting tables.
Yes.
And I was moving my desk around and upgrading my desk, still on the cheapo level, nothing too crazy.
It's the best price.
Yes, exactly. And I hit up Allan. I said, hey, I like your tables. Can I take them? He said, yeah. Showed up at his house. Really cool guy. Cool house. You go back down to the basement. And it's like all this equipment sitting in there. I don't know what it is, what's about, but I'm like, yo, you talking about how you feel when you go to galleries and see art. That's how I feel about technology. No matter what age the technology is and what's it for. It's like, this is some marvelous engineering that somebody sat around, made this thing for others to create with.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like I just want to play with it and see what happens. Just, see what that switch does and hear what that flip of that switch does.
it's interesting to me, and I guess maybe you can tell me a little bit about this. Myself being a musician, and I started recording and performing, in the 70s. It's just as I was getting out of high school. I finished high school in 79. And, I recorded on cassette decks and reel-to-reel decks and
Mm-hmm.
anything I could get my hands on. And obviously things have evolved tremendously during our lifetimes, my lifetime. And so the way you go about even just composing and conceiving of music has changed so much. The digital realm is so much different from a pencil and a paper and a guitar and maybe a cassette deck on your dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
It's evolved in amazing ways, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's maddening, and sometimes it's liberating.
Right.
But but apart from say digital, and I know you do on screen. You do a fair amount of your work on screen as opposed to right on paper. What?
Yes, it's a combination. I didn't start using technology this deep until the last, really 10 years, but for 20
Right.
years, I've been on that path. Uh-huh.
But you're obviously very grounded in just getting your hands on a pen or a brush
Mm-hmm.
and doing your thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and the interesting difference to me is how very dependent a lot of musicians now are on the technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Right, right.
working on a screen and the grid and just dealing with time and sound in that sort of
Mm-hmm.
grid way is and the visual artists still even when they're working on screen, they're still very much dependent upon the basic
Mm-hmm.
physical manual skills that they developed over years.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to go in there and see recording equipment and have your mind blown, it's sort of the opposite to me, because I can't believe that a person can take a pencil and put it on a piece of
Right.
paper and just like all of a sudden there's a
Yeah.
world in front of me.
Right. Just two
You know,
things. Right. A flat piece of paper
like,
and a writing utensil. Right. That's it.
right. But now I could, I could hit a desk with my fingers and I can produce music, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still, the idea of coming up with a finished product nowadays
Mm-hmm.
is very different for a musician
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
it is necessarily for a visual artist.
Right. And I
You
think
kind of
that.
have to be plugged into the technology nowadays,
Yeah.
which is, in a way, I have my cranky old man views about what's good and bad about that.
We
Um,
want to hear those. We're gonna want to
I,
hear
yeah, the,
those.
wor- the music business and what you hear on the radio is what it is.
Right.
And to me, it's in a sort of a God help us kind of stage of the game where things I just don't understand what
Mm-hmm.
appeals to people anymore. But there are always, just like in any art form, there are always great artists doing great things. You just
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to look for it.
That's right. That's true. So, but going back to an artist, a visual artist, pencil and paper, canvas and paint and brushes and so on. I think there is, because visual art tools allow you to create permanent works,
Yes.
whereas the musician's tools, they're more on in the moment performance,
Yeah.
and without technology to record those sounds, then
Right.
that
They
that
come and go.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I
Yeah.
want to hear that song again, we're gonna have to call Allan. You're gonna have to
But
come
then
back.
again, yeah, that's neat. That's like the difference between sort of what when I was a kid they called it the lively arts,
Hmm.
which was essentially music, theater, dance.
Right.
You know,
Hmm.
where it happened, and if you didn't have a camera or a
Hmm.
microphone and a recording apparatus,
Right.
it was gone.
Yeah.
It showed up and it went.
Hmm.
Which is much different from strolling through a gallery and how does that speak to you?
Right.
Staring
Exactly.
at something on the wall.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's evanescent, comes and it goes
Right.
immediately.
Right. Now I did notice, like I've been watching this Hulu series, the Wu-Tang Saga,
Oh,
and so it has to do with the Wu-Tang Clan, which broke ground in the sound in hip hop in the '90s, early
absolutely.
'90s. And I'm very intimate with the story because I wasn't there in New York, but I was a big fan of current music at that time,
Sure.
and we didn't have internet, so what we had was magazines,
Right.
and you devour, each
Yes.
page of every issue of a magazine to get all the info and intelligence you can find
Yeah.
on your favorite group. And so a lot of it played out. The stories played out in real life, and so if you were there, you're familiar. And because
Totally.
you have, I am a music lover, and so I've listened to the music of different generations, and I'm familiar with some sounds. So then you recognize it in the current crop of music, which then it tugs at you because there's a prior connection, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyways, that's just to say that it's a okay series to watch for those who want to
Yeah,
watch it.
I have it. I kind of have it bookmarked.
Okay.
I'm gonna check it out as soon as I get a little free time to
Yes.
just sit back
Yeah,
and
yeah.
soak it
Watch one
up.
episode at a time. Don't overindulge,
That's right.
because it's
That's
really
right.
easy to get caught up in and like, oh, that's how that happened, and so on. But it's Hollywood, so some of it is a little there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I was noticing there's a big part of how the music process it was evolved with the Wu-Tang sound and the
Right.
RZA, Bobby Digital, aka Robert Diggs, the producer, the main mastermind, and using technology to capture the sound so they can create the records and the albums and the tracks. And so there's the first two seasons is very whatever we can get, whatever technology we're able to find, and
Yeah.
what's available, what's out there, and whatever we can afford. And then now in the
Get
third,
your hands on it and leverage it
right,
however you
exactly,
can
right, right,
in your own
leverage it.
way. Put your imprint on it. That's right.
Yep. And then the third season is now currently playing on Hulu. And every week there's a new episode. And now you see the studio
Yeah.
and this amazing, beautiful,
Yeah.
equipment that matches, that goes together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but it's still the first couple seasons it was a full basement and or a full recording studio rooms, and then
Yeah.
now it's like this big open studio area, right?
Yeah.
A whole lot of things. And I was looking at it and I was telling my wife, that everything that's in there right now, people have all of that in one device.
It's a it, it's a funny thing. Um, I'm fascinated with. I'm not a huge hip hop guy. I prefer pop and jazz and blues. That's kind of my, and some folk also, but pop. I like hooks and melodies, and but some of that stuff I'm really drawn to,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fascinated with that period in the history of urban music because it was there were beatboxes and there was
Mm-hmm.
people were grabbing samples and things, um but everything was not locked onto the laptop yet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and music was not thrown onto the grid and copied and pasted the way it is nowadays.
Right.
You can't go online to a website and download gigabyte after gigabyte of beats and
Yeah.
bass lines and I mean
Right.
I have string ensembles and orchestras
Mm-hmm.
on my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I have virtually every Western instrument and quite a few Eastern instruments as well on my laptop, my extra hard drives, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, though, it was still tape machines and beatboxes,
Mm-hmm.
and just taking, doing loops and things like that. So it was still a lot of work, and it was still very organic the way the stuff came together. It was not grabbed and dragged onto the screen the way so many things are nowadays. The other thing that's interesting is like a lot of that urban stuff originated surprisingly high fidelity, great recordings that originated in very humble environments, basements, closets, wherever you could get, a decent track recorded. When Buddy Holly was around, I'm not sure if you're too
Yes.
familiar with Buddy Holly's music. I adored him as a kid. He's one of my favorite songwriters ever. And he only recorded for a couple of years before he was gone at an early age.
With
But
Richie Valens in the airplane.
that whole thing,
Yep.
which the anniversary was not long ago of that happened, the day the music died. But he had hit songs within a couple of months of each other, one of which was recorded with a couple of them True Love Ways and a few others, doesn't matter anymore, were recorded in the best studio in the world with a full orchestra. And then he had a song like Well, All Right, which he recorded on a tape deck in his apartment. And they were both hit songs, which is amazing. And that it reminded me of that when you were talking about the environment that these bands work in. Because, when you've got no money, you take whatever you can get your hands on.
That's right.
And go as far as you can with it. And then when you've got a budget and all kinds of people providing things to you, you can leverage that. But it's actually much more challenging when you go into an environment where you have more options.
Yes.
And if you're in a professional recording studio that's tricked out with all the gear that you can get nowadays, all the screen and computer-based digital audio tricks that you can muster up and use, you can get lost.
Yes.
So it's interesting. Those guys, those urban artists, those men and women who were doing that stuff in the 80s and 90s. I mean, and even further back,
Right.
further back.
Right.
Amazing innovation.
Yeah.
Just taking everything and going as far as they could with it, which I love.
It happens with visual artists too, because I think that's just part of the creative process where, because you have the creativity coming from within,
Yeah.
you will reach for whatever is closest, whatever is within your grasp.
Right.
And so you learn to deal with that, which is, I like to say that I was born with a pencil in my hand, because I cannot recall a time when I wasn't drawing. But I think that more so than that is the fact that pencils are the most common tool out there, right? The number 2 pencil, the yellow classic number 2 pencil. And it's the cheapest thing. You can buy 20 of them for $2.
Yeah. And that's right. Get some paper and you're off and running.
Boom.
That's amazing.
That's right. And
that's low tech.
Right. But that's like your very first step into here's a tool. And so our creativity runs wild with this basic 1 tool, 2 tools. Now you add a marker to it, you add a canvas to it, and then today's world, I don't want to get into my unpopular opinions segments, but when artists say I'm having a block, or I'm like, what are you talking about? Like you got tons of markers, there's tons of computers,
right.
There's this
right.
Tons of things. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that we get caught up in the decision making. Well, if I want to draw this and I wanted to do that, then I'm going to need this tool, but I don't have this option and I have that option. And then after a while, we get caught up in the decision making breakdown, and we're frozen, and I haven't drawn anything yet.
I can, if I'm, say, working on recording a song, and I do all my work, headphones, microphone, laptop, and maybe a keyboard to play parts onto, but, guitar plugged into my audio interface, and I spit it out as fast as I can. But there are times when I'll spend a half an hour just working on how the guitar sounds. It's a little amplifier on my screen. It's a software amp that emulates a guitar that, an amp that I might have been playing on, in my basement or whatever. And I'll spend forever just getting the sound that I think the song needs to have. And the next thing you know, the creative flow is just blown.
Right.
So there's always, for me, it's almost like a tug of war, but it's a dialogue between sort of simplicity and complexity.
Right.
And for me, how quickly and directly can I capture my idea and spit it out through a pair of speakers so that people will get what I'm feeling? And sometimes you have to just get the sound of the guitar just right, move the microphone a little more distortion, or make the echo a little longer. A million decisions to get the final product to just really bounce and fit and just everything great. But that's something an artist has to do. The finished product has to be polished.
Right.
But people don't care. Now, right? If it sounds horrible, they're gonna care.
Right.
Like it's a crappy recording, or if you messed up something in your visual artwork, it's going to affect people. But for the most part, they don't care how much reverb you put on whatever instrument it is you're putting under the microscope. They don't care. What they care is like they listen to it and, it reminds them of something, or it makes them feel a way they once felt. There's a human connection there, right? And but the problem is if you fall into that complexity thing, you can lose that juice. You lose the creative spark, right? I forget what writer it was. It might have been Neil Gaiman. He's a really great writer.
Yes.
And he said, there's no such thing as writer's block. I'm paraphrasing, and I think it was him. But the point was, you think you have writer's block because when you write a paragraph and you don't like it and you feel like it's not going in the direction you're trying to push it. He said, and so you'll go a week, you'll go make coffee and you'll go sit on the porch, you'll go to the grocery store, you'll walk the dog, you'll do all the things that you use as excuses for not sitting there. His point was, it's not writer's block, you're just not connecting right now. So just write garbage for a couple of hours.
Yes.
Keep your fingers moving. And I think it's the same thing when visual artists they go, all right, the big acrylic mural I'm working on is not clicking. So they'll just grab a pencil and a paper and just start moving just moving their hands. And it's really very much the same thing with music, I think. Sometimes I feel like I'm zeroing in, and other times I feel like it's all going out the window. And if it's going out the window, then I'll just take my headphones off, pick up my acoustic guitar, go in the living room and just move my fingers and empty my mind. And eventually it all starts to come back. But if you believe that you have a creative block and you stop working, you're dead.
Yeah.
It's like a boat that's not moving. You cannot steer a boat that isn't moving. So, and I speak from experience that I think I wasted a lot of time and I spilled a lot of creative juice because I was like, oh, I can't do it. And I walk away from things. And if there's one thing I would impart to anyone who's in the career process of developing as an artist, like, just don't worry how good it is.
Yeah.
Can I say a naughty word?
Yes, you can.
It's not very naughty.
Okay.
Hemingway once said that the first draft of everything is shit. First draft is shit. And his point also was and I heard Graham Greene say this also, if your first draft sounds really good, you blew it. Because what you do in the first draft is you just spill it, right? You spill it on.
Yeah.
And then you refine it. Now, I realize if you're painting, you can't always erase what you've done. You really have to kind of, in a way, painting is kind of a performing art too, because you got to get that line just right, or else, oh, Jesus. Sometimes you can cover it over and you can mask it, or you could, right? But, musicians can overdub for weeks if they want to.
Sure.
And writers can do the same thing. They can rewrite. So but that first draft has to come out fast and furious, and full of mistakes. If it's perfect grammar, your mind is in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You have to edit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you got to do that dump. That's an artist's advice also, visual artists, because it said that you have to get the bad drawings out of your system first.
Yeah. Get the garbage out.
Yeah, you got to get it out. And the biggest fear that I felt that I've seen other artists go through is that we got that brand new shiny sketchbook. You open it up, you smell the paper. It's like, this is wonderful. Like a brand new paper. And so you're afraid to start the sketch and drawing because you're not sure how it's going to end. And you don't want a bad drawing. Worse. Yeah. And you don't want a bad drawing on your brand new, beautiful sketchbook.
Well, silence is perfect.
Right. Okay.
Right? And as soon as you add a sound, then people are going to react to it or evaluate it.
Right.
But silence is just heaven.
Right.
As soon as you commit to doing, and it's, a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And
but as soon as you mark it up,
that's it.
You're going to criticize yourself, and others are going to look at it and, oh, that reminds me of, I often, like, when I'm writing a song, before I get into my digital audio software and start putting down drums and bass and guitar and God knows what else, I'd have to, like, even if the song isn't finished, I'll come up with maybe it's the bridge, or maybe it's the first line of the first verse, or maybe it's just a hook, like the chorus, and I'll get that part down, even if it's like a 4 or 8 bar phrase, and I'll play it like 80 times,
Mm-hmm.
say on an acoustic guitar in the
Mm-hmm.
living room,
Mm-hmm.
until it starts to feel really comfortable. And then I'll scribble out some verses and such, and then I'll take, maybe even just my iPhone and record myself just strumming and singing and humming and just getting the shape down long before I'll drive around in my car and sing it sometimes. Like I'll burn a guitar part onto a USB stick and then
Uh-huh.
stick it in my car. I drive around with the windows
Uh-huh.
open,
Mm-hmm.
singing my own music. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking ahead, like, would a person drive down the street and enjoy hearing this song, or would they sing it?
Mm-hmm.
The way I used to like sing Beatles tunes when they came on the radio or whatever. So before I commit to even, because it takes hours, even if it's easy, it takes hours and hours to finish a recording, especially if you're doing all the parts the way I do
Right.
lately as a songwriter. It
Right.
can take 20 or 30 hours to do one song.
Right. Right. Right.
Sometimes it only takes 10 hours, but
And
it takes hours. And so and I've done this before, or I thought I had something good and I get like way into it. I'm 3 days into it, and all of a sudden I go, I don't like this song. I really don't. I don't like this. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't, who, who am I writing this for? What am I trying to prove?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not so much calibrating as like, I guess you're calibrating your hand movements or something. But I guess that process of doing sketches is similar when you're a musician, because if it doesn't hold up on paper and pencil and sitting in your kitchen just strumming it and singing it, it's not going to sound any better once you start to polish it.
Right.
The basic content isn't going to, the framework isn't there,
Right.
so you can't build on it.
Right. And so how do you feel when you're halfway through it and you're like, yeah, none of this is working right? And do you feel do you have some um habits that help you get over that bad feeling and let it go, and work on something else, or take a break? What are the things that you do when things like that happen?
You have options, I think, at that point. And, you know, mu- artists, musicians and artists, and I mean, artistic people in general tend to be very self-absorbed and very self-critical. So I will go through a 10-second phase of, you idiot, I hate myself. Why? I just wasted 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
God, I could have been da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
I keep that down to about 10 seconds or less now. And sometimes I just skip that stage.
Yeah. I was
If
gonna
it's a
say.
yeah, if it's a good day, I just blow it off. But really the same reaction for me is, well, I learned something in there,
Mm.
and I have people very rarely improve as human beings until they are in a difficult situation and they're sweating and they're making mistakes, or they stand to lose something.
Mm-hmm.
And artists are not exempt from that. If anything, they're the example of that, right?
Right. Right.
Because you make a painting and you put it on the wall, or you write a song and you try to get it on the radio. People are going to criticize you, but you've already criticized yourself like horribly, just
Mm-hmm.
beating yourself up. So by the time you're done, that should all be over, you know. But when you're in the process of doing it, you know, resenting the fact that something took you a long time and you didn't finish it is wasted energy, and it's just bad karma.
Mm-hmm.
You even if you don't see it at the moment, you have to tell yourself that you got something out of it, that you learned something.
Right.
Even if it's like, well, I learned not to do that ever again. You're if you screwed it up so badly that there are a million things you would have done differently. Well, that's great, because
Right.
the next time you sit down to do something, that's a long list of things you don't ever need to try again, and you can focus on something else. So I try to get something out of it.
So we learn from our mistakes and learn from take a lesson out of it. Take a lesson.
Yeah.
Something
The
new.
only thing I do now, and if you were listening to, say, I have a website where I posted some songs, and if you listen to them, uh, it's funny. I love being a songwriter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just pure joy for me. I'm a decent singer. I'm a slightly better than average instrumentalist. I could play guitar and bass fairly well. I could fake it on drums and keyboards. Um, I have a background in composition. I went to music school. I basically learned how to orchestrate and write and arrange and compose for any Western instrument. So I understand them all implicitly. Um, but I'm not a fabulous singer. I'm not a fabulous player. I'm a decent arranger. I understand all that stuff. What I love most of all is songwriting, right? I
Right.
love having an idea and bringing it from, it's like, from the pencil to the paper. It's the same thing. It comes out of you and it just goes through these things and then people get to have their experience of it. And I love songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was going somewhere, but I was so impressed with what I was saying that I kind of lost the thread. What what I'm getting at is that it's a joy to do it, whether it comes
Right.
out well or not. But
Mm-hmm.
if you listen to the songs that I've posted, it's funny because I like doing them so much, and if it's a good idea, I'll finish it. But I almost never see myself completely in the song.
Hmm.
They sound confessional, and some of it, of course, just as an artist would do, some of it springs up from your own personal experience. People write sad songs. Well, they had their hearts broken in high school,
Sure.
or and
Mm-hmm.
we write about things that we experienced, but they're really very universal, right? And anyone could have experienced it. But I have songs that I played for other people that aren't necessarily even songs that I would enjoy listening to if someone else had done it.
Mm.
Really, and
Right.
it's not that they're bad songs. I like my work, but a lot of it is just not the kind of stuff that I would listen to if I were a listener.
Uh-huh.
It just happens to bubble up through me
Hmm.
instead of up through some other musician. It's almost like you're a hole in the ground and there's all this music underneath it,
Yeah.
and that song just popped up through your hole in the ground.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of that has to do with your personality and your experience, and obviously the things that you like and don't like. But it's not really determined, at least for me, it's not always determined by that. Sometimes I'll write a song, I go, Jesus, where did that come from? You
Right.
know,
Right. And so where do you think those inspirations comes from? Where does the source of this comes from? And are you like just the tool, the machine at some
does,
point?
does it feel that way to you sometimes? That you're like a telephone wire, like you're a conduit?
Yes, I do feel like that sometimes where you feel that is your you somehow like a channel. You have tapped into something
Right,
and where without, and that usually happens when I'm not trying, when I'm just like trying it out,
right.
like I'm just gonna draw, I'm gonna sketch something, like you mentioned earlier. Just when the mural's not working out or the paint's not working out, you go back to the pencil, you just kind of scribble,
Yeah,
and then you start seeing things. Your
yeah,
brain tells you there's something there, and you're like,
yeah.
oh yeah, and then your heart tells you move your hand this other way, and then you end up with something you're like, oh, that's all right.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's a combination maybe of two things where you want to put your stamp on something because it's your work, and so you have ideas about what you think is, what you want to achieve, say with a painting or a song or
Hmm.
whatever it is that you happen to be working on. Of course, you have an objective, right?
Right.
Um, I want it
You
to
you
sound
think
cool.
about
I
it,
want
yeah.
people to dance, whatever.
Mhm.
I want to
Mhm.
make them sad,
Mhm.
whatever it is that you want to do. But my best work is always when I get out of the way.
Right.
You know, uh, I don't want it to be a song about my life or about me. I would just want to be the guy who did the work. You know,
Right.
like
Okay.
if you walk into a house that's incredibly beautiful, you don't necessarily know anything about the architect or the builder, but you love being inside that space. Like the living room is just perfect. The kitchen is amazing. The porch is fabulous. Somebody put themselves into that, but you don't necessarily know anything about them.
Hmm.
And I always like to get out of the way as much as I can, which is not easy. I think if you're a painter or a songwriter, there's always a nice residue of your own personality in there. But maybe it's just ego. Maybe I like if I stop worrying about like, God, I hate the sound of my voice, or I wish I could sing higher, or I wish I could play faster, or why do I always write songs about da 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 da? If I just put the expectations aside and act more like a kid who's exploring, like walking through the woods or has watercolors and is just going crazy on the dining room table. Then I think the stuff really starts to happen. And if you get out of there it is.
Yes,
if
right.
you get out of the way, then you're more of a channel and you're less more of a person who's trying to do something,
Right.
which can be great. I mean, there are great artists with very distinct, if you look at Van Gogh, it's Van Gogh. If you look at Gauguin or, Picasso had his stages, but you always know it's, you can see the stamp. But I personally, I like to get out of the way. I like to be just the guy who did the job, or the container that brought it from point A to point B.
Right.
I'd much rather be.
Yeah.
My dream as a young person was to be fabulously successful and rich, and have my songs on the radio, and have everybody like dancing and singing. If you've ever, as a songwriter, the greatest treat on earth is to be walking down the street the morning after you played a gig, and some college girl is humming a song that you wrote and sang the night before. I actually had that happen once. It was the best day of my life.
Right, right. And so,
and
go ahead.
I dreamed of being filthy rich and completely anonymous. Just people had no idea who I was, but they're listening to the song and loving it. So the idea of just getting out of the way is pure joy to me, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. And it brings up this thought where, a lot of times artists will draw something, and they want to leave the interpretation up to the person who's looking at it.
Yeah.
Don't explain it. Don't give your reasons.
Yeah.
See what the reaction is, and let people make up in their own mind. Now, we actually bought a painting that way. We produce our shows, and many years ago we had this big show. I was hanging up artwork. My wife was there helping me, and she says, "I like that painting. I want it." I'm like, "Dang, well, we just hanging it up, like nobody's seen it yet." And I said, "Fine." So we hung it up, and hung up the show, and there it is. The show's happening. I told the artist, I said, "Yeah, your painting, we're gonna get it." And
Gotta
she said,
have
okay, yeah. And she says, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "My wife really likes it. It really touched her." And she says, That's strange, because I was upset. I was going through a hard time, and I just had to put it out there." And I was like, "Really?" Because what we get out of it is like, it looks like an angel. Like there's an angel
Right.
here.
Right. How funny, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I hear what you're saying. It makes sense, and sometimes we do want like hopefully there's sometimes we do it on purpose, like you said. What am I trying to accomplish? Do I want people dancing?
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes we do feel that way. Like we're creating something like, I want to make sure that nobody misses this out of the picture,
Yeah.
And then
Well,
go ahead.
people will do this with paintings, I know, but they'll also do this with songs. Like you'll write a song and they can hear all the words, but they say, what's that song about? Well, it doesn't, there's not an appendix like at the end of the book where they explain things about what the book. It's just, you read the book and you're done with the book, and that's what the book was about. And it's the same thing with a painting or a song. It's not about. Now, songs can be about, lovers. They can be about poverty. It can be about da-da-da-da. And some artwork, and I know this is very much the case with visual art. Some artwork is just blatantly political.
Right.
And some of that, Guernica, I know I'm going back to obvious examples, but Guernica, the Picasso painting, is powerful. But you can see it's full of rage and it's just but it's very political. And of course, take a band like the Clash, who wrote political songs. These guys were basically Marxists, or socialists anyway, as we say nowadays. And a lot of their songs were very political, but it was still, really beautiful work, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think sometimes you just have a message, and it's propaganda. You're propagating an idea.
Right.
And that's cool. Sometimes it's powerful. Other times it's like, no, man, I just want to, like jazz has very strong social messages. Even when even when there are no words, there's just, it's such a powerful medium. Jazz and blues to me is just, I think it's the greatest thing the United States has ever done. It's better than hot dogs and Chevrolets. And, to me, jazz and the blues is the height of American culture.
Nice.
It's just,
yes.
And even as impressionistic and out of focus as it sometimes is, it has really strong messages in it.
Right.
So it's political, but it's never like, it's not like Fight the Power. It's not that obvious,
Right,
but it's
right.
always in there.
Right.
And I like music that has emotional power, but is not necessarily telling you how the world should be.
Right. Okay.
Having said that, there's a lot of artwork that does tell you the artist's perception of how they will envision the world. Imagine all the people. It's a fabulous song, but I try not to write stuff like that. I try not to express my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah?
Well, that's cool. It's
either way, right?
Right. There's a diverse taste in music that in so many genres. There's really gonna be someone who likes something, and we don't have to like everything, but there's also time and a place for every part. So of course, before we are done today, I need to ask you some basic questions.
All right.
Number one, what is your full name and where are you from?
Allan Ploth, Allan Ploth. I was born on Long Island in New York. I spent most of my childhood in small towns in upstate New York. I traveled around a lot as a musician. I lived in Philly. I lived in New York, in the Village for many years. I traveled around a lot as a musician, and I lived a couple of years in Atlanta in the 90s, moved back to the Village, and then in 2002 I moved back down to Atlanta, and I've been here ever since.
Okay. And when you say you grew up a musician, like what were the instruments that you favored in the beginning, and what attracted you to music?
My dad was a Presbyterian minister, and my mom was a school teacher, and she played organ on Sundays in the church services.
Okay.
And when I was a little boy, I used to sit next to her and listen to her practice the organ, which I loved. Is that that huge sound coming out of the pipes, pipe organ on the wall, and I would watch the music while she moved her fingers, and I literally learned how to read music before I could read words.
Okay.
Because I was like you gravitated toward a pencil. I just was hearing music. I have no visual artistic ability at all, but for me, it's all ears. So, and I like to think that I became a songwriter because my dad preached and my mom played the organ. So for me, it was like words and music, the message, the sermon, so I became a songwriter, I think, because of that. And I was mainly a singer all my life. I went to music school. I studied composition, but I was a voice major, which is uncommon.
Okay.
They're usually violinists or pianists or whatever, But I was doing it all in my head. So I play a bunch of different instruments, but I like to think of myself mainly as just a singer and a songwriter.
Okay. Yes, and you do have physical instruments that you learn to play.
Oh yeah, yeah. Guitar, bass, upright bass, electric bass, guitar. I played trombone and baritone in high school. I played string bass in the orchestra. I taught myself to play saxophone. I actually played that in a rock band, and when I was in college, I picked up every instrument that I could and learned how to play it, primarily so that I could learn how to write for it. to understand it, you know.
Right, right,
And I
right.
and I my first instrument actually was drums. I played drums for 2 years before I started on the trombone, and got a ukulele when I was
Uh-huh.
12, and I got a guitar when I was 13, and
That's
you know, it was
awesome.
all downhill from there. But all the other kids, my three older siblings, all had to take piano lessons, and my mom got me piano lessons, and I whined, I whined so much, and I think she got so sick of the whining that she bought me a ukulele.
Uh-huh.
So
So here.
I escaped the piano, and I gravitated toward the guitar.
That's super cool, and that's great that you had a family that encouraged and was built around music,
Yeah,
because it just fueled
yeah,
your own
yeah.
talents.
My dad had a good singing voice, but he was not really a musician, and nobody on his side of the family was.
Hmm.
Everyone on my mother's side is a musician.
Oh,
Um, about I'd say a third or a half of us have what you commonly call perfect pitch.
okay.
Like if you hear a song, you know what key
Uh,
it's in, and you know, I'm not bragging. It's just you can either do it or you can't.
right,
But
right.
like if I hear a song on the radio, I can write it out. I can write the whole thing.
Uh
It
huh.
just happens,
Uh
and
huh.
it's like you know, like I knew a graphic artist who would see a certain green on
Mm-hmm.
the screen, and he could tell you the RGB values,
Wow. Uh huh. Uh huh. Right,
and
right.
he was always close.
Uh huh.
and
Uh huh.
and it was similar to like, well, I know something is in, I know it's an E flat. Well, how do you know it's an E flat? I don't know, just know. So everyone on my mom's side was like that. They could all sing. They had really good pitch, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, everybody played two or three instruments, which was great. I had an uncle, Allan, that I was named after, who had a pretty successful career out in L.A.
Hmm.
as a arranger, singer. He would work on TV shows. He'd orchestrate, and was music coordinator for TV shows, and he worked with Disney and places like that. So I thought this is the greatest guy ever, and I want to do what he did.
Right. Right. And
So
so that was gonna be another question of mine, and you can tell us more about that. But so there was a moment in your life where you told yourself, "This is the life that I want to live. It's out there, and
yeah,
I'm gonna make it a go."
yeah. I tried to be interested in other things. I thought psychology was interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
thought literature was interesting. Um, I stayed away from math and sciences, although now I think they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was probably 5 when I said, "Oh, musician, just gonna develop my skills." I was
Uh-huh.
writing songs on the piano that were horrendous, and I'd make my mother sit there and play them. Oh, that's really nice,
Uh-huh.
you know. So I knew early on.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 13, I was at this party. We were moving from one town to another, and they kind of threw this party for us, and it was the end of 8th grade, and my music teacher was there, and he had been drinking along with all the other adults. I think I might have stuck some beer, you know, but we were chit chatting, and he said, "Well, what are you gonna do?" You know, he said, Are you gonna keep playing in the band?" I said, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
You know, he knew I was moving to another high school,
Mm.
and he said, "What do you think you're gonna do when you grow up?" And I looked at him. I said, "Well, what do you think I'm gonna do?" He said, "Are you gonna be a musician?" I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a musician."
Uh-huh.
And, you know, he made an okay living because he was the high school,
Right.
you know,
Right.
director. His bills were paid. And he had a band that played on weekends. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"You realize you're never going to make any money. Statistically, you are going to have a horrible life." I said, "Yeah, I know. It's going to suck." And he said, "But I know you're going to do it no matter how horrible the life is." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it."
Uh-huh.
And he just patted me on the back. He said, "You know, go get him, Tiger."
Right. Yeah. Good luck with that. All right.
Yeah, and it's horrible. I often wish I'd gotten a more practical degree and
Mm-hmm.
gotten a good job and then just worked 3 or 4 hours a night on music.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how it is. It's like a moth to the flame. You can't do anything else. It's a curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It's a part of you that must come out.
you can't cut it off and just put it somewhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of you.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
it is. It sounds sanctimonious, but it's your master. It's who you are,
Mm-hmm.
whether you or not.
Yeah.
You can dress up. You can put on different clothes, but you're the same thing. You're
Right.
still
Right.
a
I,
painter, musician, dancer, whatever.
yes. I worked at the Sunny Delight packing place where they was making the big tubs of red punch and then putting
Right.
them in little things. And so
Where was this? Was this
here in
when you were?
Atlanta. This is here in Atlanta,
Oh, in
down
Atlanta.
Fulton Industrial.
Right.
There's a ton of
Yeah.
plants down there, and so I was a temp. I was working a temp agency, and they sent me out there, and so here I am. You know, this is the first year I was here in Atlanta, and
Paying your bills.
yeah, that's it. You have to work, right? You do manual labor, and because I was fresh out of the Marine Corps, anyways, and
Oh,
so here I am at this big open tub where I dump Sunny Delight plastic bottles into, and then the tub itself has a mechanism where it
it's like
lines them up.
sorts it, puts
Yeah,
it on a
that's right.
belt and
Sorts
all
it
that stuff.
in.
Yeah.
And so there's these big pieces of cardboard that you have to break out of the packaging to dump these bottles out of. And so before you know, there's a nice stack of cardboard sitting there, and you have a marker in your hand, and you only need, to dump out bottles every 15 minutes. So you got 14 whole minutes of just standing there, just making sure that the line is working.
Oh,
I was like, well, we're gonna draw.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get a job that gives you a little bit of time or involves the skills that you're trying to develop. I would like when I first moved to Atlanta in '95, I just immediately got a job doing sound at a club in the Highlands, and then I found a couple other places where I could go and be the sound man. And it's horrible because you're sitting there watching other musicians, and a lot of them really suck. When you're in a bar and people are having fun and people are making music and you're moving knobs and faders around, and every once in a while people go, "It sounds great," and they pay you. So
Right.
it was cool. It was cool. Or I would take the job for like 3 months. I'd go out on the road as the front of house sound engineer for a decent band, and sometimes you hook up with a band that you really like, and you basically sit in front of a mixing board and you get to make the band sound the way you like it to sound.
Oh, wow.
Which is much different from putting on a song and listening to it. You're setting it up the way you think it should sound. So
yeah,
that's like,
there you go.
That's fun. And they pay you.
Right, they pay.
Yeah.
That's the best part. Cool. That's the best part. You get to have fun and you get a paycheck out of it. That's right.
Yeah. Well, we all have jobs where like, I have had 50 million weird jobs, where I didn't have any time to do anything.
Right. Yeah,
and that's life.
Yes,
that's
of course.
Like you pay your dues.
But you're always looking for that opportunity that is going to be within that range of your talents, of your skills, of the passion.
Yeah. I'm kind of past the career thing where I don't play gigs anymore, really. Occasionally I'll sit in with somebody, and I'm not trying to hawk my songs to Nashville publishers anymore. I am sitting, and I'm not even that involved in songwriting anymore. I've been sitting lately and working on solo jazz guitar, which is against my nature. As I said earlier, I'm not a strong player, but I've always loved jazz. I've made money as a jazz bass player, but I don't call myself one because I have friends who are jazz bass players, and they can bury me. I mean, these people are monsters, and I'm an amoeba. I'm nothing compared to them. But while I still have a brain and fingers that work, I want to get to where I can play solo jazz guitar. I'm hoping that like a year's worth of concentrated effort will turn me into a kind of musician that I've never been before.
Nice.
So, I'm 61 and I'm trying to behave like a young kid again, where I'm absorbing something.
Yeah.
For the first time, really digging in.
Yeah. Well, like you said,
I've listened to it and I've enjoyed it and I can do some stuff, but I'm not in it. I'm not in it. I'm kind of on the edge of it. And I wanna feel young again. So I'm doing something. I'm trying to retrain my brain to do something that's against my nature in a way.
Yeah, that's crazy because a lifetime of music, and you're like, I've never been this.
Yeah, it's like you're chucking 95% of what you've done just to go and do this one other thing, which is, I stand no chance whatsoever of becoming a virtuoso. It takes way too long, but I know if I do it for a year, I can get pretty good.
Yes, and
it'll be fun.
Right, and that's a good theory, and it's been said many times that 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you got it. You got it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I only have to live till I'm 140. I'll get I'll get at least 9,000 in.
there you go. Well,
But I guess my point there is that I'm I guess I proved myself now and then as a musician. You know,
mm-hmm,
I did some of the things that I set out to do,
mm-hmm,
and some people enjoyed what I was doing, which is great. I certainly had a blast.
mm-hmm.
There's nothing more fun than being in a three-piece rock band playing to about 1,000 people, and the place is just throbbing, and you can hear your voice and your bass coming through the sound system, and
Yeah,
it's slamming.
yeah,
And so it's an ecstatic moment. And I've
yes.
had that a bunch of times. So I got to do some things that I had hoped to do. You know, I didn't become the billionaire Grammy Award winning songwriter, but
Uh-huh.
ultimately it's not important, you know.
Right.
And now I'm at a point where I have zero expectations. I really
Mm-hmm,
just want to sit and do something that's cool and that makes me feel like I'm in a warm, nice
mm-hmm,
place.
mm-hmm.
That's fun,
Right. That's
you
good.
know.
I think it's your definition of success, your definition of what a proper, wholesome, complete experience changes
Yeah,
from when you're a kid looking outside at the world, looking at the
yeah,
Super Bowl halftime show,
yeah.
and then the actual life experience. You're like, you know what, that was all right.
When you're young, you're energetic, you're idealistic, you're bulletproof, you think you're going to live forever, so you'll do a million things.
Mm-hmm.
When you're 61, you realize you're not going to learn 10 more instruments. You're not going to record 20 more albums worth of material.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. So now you go, well, what can I do with the time and energy and physical and mental capacity that I have? What can I do that is fun?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, that is fulfilling.
Mm.
Um, I hope in a year to be good enough to play in front of someone outside of my house.
Mm.
You know, and
Mm-hmm.
I have high standards. I hate sucking in front of an audience. You know, so if it's not good enough, I'm just going to stay in, you know, the spare bedroom and play. And that's fine. That will
Sure.
be a success, you know,
Right.
because I'm doing what I like. Might get good enough to play some gigs, I'll do it. But it's not an expectation. I don't care anymore.
Okay.
You
Well,
know?
now that we got to that point where we're talking about gigs, where can we find you now? Is it online? Will there be any in-person places where you still do things?
I don't have any. I've been messing around with the idea of playing gigs with some people, and I might in the future. Um, I have a SoundCloud account,
Mm-hmm.
a website where you can put music up, and you can hear songs that they're all they're a wide arrangement of songs that I wrote and liked for one reason or another. Some of them are decently recorded, some of them not so much. But there's stuff that I like,
Uh-huh.
and it's on a website there.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's easy enough to find.
Okay. Well,
But
I'm gonna make sure I find them and I put them in the description of the video so everybody
oh,
can follow
I
up.
can email you a link, or I
Yes.
can,
Yes.
you know,
Anything you want me to feature
yeah.
and share, just send it to me and I'll put it together. That's awesome.
Yes, it's you know, it's a little body of just stuff I did,
Uh-huh.
you know, body of work.
Right. That's it. And you can look at that body of work and look back and be like, well, there wasn't that hard of a life. I got something out of it.
It's neat.
Uh-huh.
I every once in a while I'll post something that I recorded 25 years ago that I had forgotten about.
Uh-huh.
You know, like, oh, that's who I was. Well, you get to see who you were.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I imagine you probably do that when you look at the work that you did
Mm-hmm.
early on.
Yep.
It's the same guy, but it's just it's previous you,
Yes,
right?
Yep.
Earlier version.
You can see what you were thinking about, see what you were feeling, see what was inspiring you at that time. You're like, hey, that wasn't too bad. I don't know what I was thinking about myself, but that's
Yeah,
all right.
I put a song on that SoundCloud site that is I wrote when I was 17.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I re-recorded it like, I don't know what, 2-3 years ago. But it's very adolescent.
Okay.
And it's cool because it's adolescent. It's a teenage boy. Funny.
There you go.
Funny.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, Allan. I appreciate all your words and everything you share with us today. It is awesome to talk to another passionate person and hear their story.
It's fun to see you again. We got to meet up in person and just kind of hang out.
Yes. Maybe you can have your guitar and you practice your tunes, and I practice some sketching, and we just chill.
We'll go have a picnic. I'll play you something. You can draw me a tree. Does that sound like a date?
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
Do it.
All right. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Good to see you, sir.
Yes, sir.
1,000 blessings upon your tribe.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
The Artist King podcast is made possible by the support of our sponsors, Azalea Creative Group, Sketchable Plus, and Visual Artworks. Once again, I am DTM, and I look forward to sharing the business of art with you. Until next time, stay creative.